Hello. Thank you for joining us on MB2K Studios for the Maryland Class A CDL pre-trip. Please follow along in your book. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below and we will answer them as soon as possible. We hope this video helps you, and good luck in your future endeavors.
Here you have the muffler, the heat shield, and the pipe leading the engine. Not loose, missing, damage. Secured to the truck with no missing nuts or bolts. It has no soot or exhaust leaks and no soot or rust buildup. Okay, soot or exhaust will be leaking from here. It's going to be a black chalky substance that's smooth to the touch. And as far as rust buildup, you just don't want it to be built up enough to where it's actually making it to where you can push in on the metal itself. We're going to move down here to the fuel tank. You have your fuel tank, your straps, gaskets, your fuel cap with rubber seal, and your fuel lines. The fuel tank is not loose, missing, damaged. It's not dented, not leaking. The straps are tight and secure to the truck with no missing nuts or bolts. They're centered on the gaskets. The gasket is not dry rotted or cracked. The fuel cap with rubber seal is tight and secure to the tank. The rubber seal inside is not dry rotted or cracked. For the test, you will remove it and show them the seal on the inside. The fuel lines are not frayed, not cracked, not leaking, secured to the tank. We're going to move to the steps. Your steps are not loose, missing, or damaged, not cracked, bent, or broken, secured to the truck with no missing nuts or bolts, with no debris or objects. Just to make sure that it's on there securely, just take a foot and just kind of shake it a little bit. Okay? Then we're going to move to the front. For this purpose, I'm actually going to go ahead and close the hood. Right. You want to look back here, you're going to look directly underneath the truck for any leaks or puddles. You're going to remember head plus P. H is hydraulic fluid, E is engine oil, A is antifreeze, D is diesel fuel, and P is power steering fluid. Head plus P, okay? Then you're going to walk over to the truck. Put one foot here, 2 hands, and you're just going to go ahead and open it safely, okay? They will count off for the test if you don't do it like that, due to it being a safety issue. Then we're going to talk about the oil dipstick and tube, okay? The oil dipstick and tube are 2 different entities, so just to show it here, you do not have to do this for the test. We're going to go ahead and take it out, look at it. You're going to wipe it off, put it back, take it out, then you're going to look. And you want it to be at a safe operating level in between or above the refill mark, which is down here. Now, this is the oil dipstick. You also don't want it to be bent or cracked. And then we're going to look at the tube, which is right there. The tube is secured to the engine. And put it back. Now remember, you do not have to do this for the test. You just have to explain it. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and talk about the water pump. Okay, the water pump is right here. That is your water pump. It's not loose, missing, or damaged. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. It's operating properly. It's not leaking. Secured to the engine with no missing nuts or bolts. It is gear driven. Okay. Now the gearbox is right here. And if it's ever belt fed, there's a belt that usually runs to it, and that's the difference. Then we're going to talk about the water pump hoses. You have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Now, just to make it simple, just find one and touch it. So my water pump hoses, they're not loose, missing, or damaged. They're not dry rotted, not frayed, not leaking. Clamps are tight and secure. Okay. Then I'm going to move down here to my alternator. My alternator is not loose, missing, or damaged. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. It's operating properly. Has no missing nuts or bolts. And it's secured to the engine. We're going to move on up here. You have your electrical wires, okay? Or lines, however you want to say that. They're not loose, missing, or damaged. Has no exposed wires. They're not frayed, not chafed, not worn, not spliced, not corroded. Okay. And then we're going to move over here to the alternator fan belt. Now, if you look, it runs both the fan and the alternator. That's the reason it's called the alternator and fan belt. But just to make it simple, I just call it the alternator fan belt. It's not frayed, it's not cracked. It's not frayed, it's not cracked. And there's no more than 3/4 of play from the center. I think in the book it says no less than 3/4 of play. So always make sure you verify with the book on the wording. Sometimes I'm going to over-explain, sometimes I'll under-explain. But whatever the book says, that's what you're going to say verbatim, exactly as the book is written. And then we're going to move from here, and we're going to go up here to the coolant reservoir. It's not loose, missing, or damaged. It's not leaking. All nuts and bolts are tight and secure. The fluid level is visible with room inside for expansion. Do not remove cap while hot. Okay? Now, you don't have to touch the cap or anything for the test. So far on this side, the only thing you have to demonstrate is the fuel cap. Open it, show the seal, and alternator fan belt. Demonstrate to make sure they get that 3/4 of play. Once we get to this side, we're actually going to start with the air compressor, which is right here. The air compressor is not loose, missing, or damaged, not cracked, bent, or broken. It's operating properly. It's not leaking. It is gear driven. Okay. Mounted securely to the engine with no missing nuts or bolts. We're going to talk about the air compressor hose. Always look for the orange one. That's the easiest one to remember, okay? It can be explained the exact same way as the water pump hoses, okay? So not loose, missing, or damaged. It's not frayed. It's not cracked. It's not leaking. Clamps are tight in place, okay? Then we'll move to the power steering fluid reservoir. Power steering fluid reservoir is not loose, missing, or damaged, not cracked, bent, or broken. It's not leaking. It's operating properly. It's mounted to the frame with no missing nuts or bolts. Can be checked via dipstick, which is this little one right here. Now, you do not actually have to check that on the test. Same thing with the oil dipstick on the other side. Neither one actually have to be checked. Then we're going to move to the power steering hoses. You have 1, 2, and 3. The third one's underneath here, right here. So 3. None are loose, missing, or damaged. None are frayed. None are cracked. None are leaking. Clamps are tight and in place. Now, if you follow this one right here, it'll actually lead you directly to your power steering pump right there. If you can get under there a little bit more and actually show them the pump. There you go. Power steering pump right there. Power steering pump is not loose, missing, damaged. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. It's operating properly. It's not leaking, and it is mounted securely to the engine with no missing nuts or bolts. Once we're done with that, we're actually going to move out here. We're going to start from here. This is the frame of the truck. We're going to start here, and we're going to walk the entire frame of the truck. Once you get to right here, the frame of the truck is not loose, missing, damaged, not cracked, bent, or broken. It has no illegal welds, no broken welds, and no unmanufactured holes. Now, if you skip ahead in your book and you come back, you'll find the frame of the trailer and the cross members. Alright, now, when you get to that part of the book, it'll actually show that they can be explained the exact same way as the truck, frame of the truck. So the way I would like you to explain that, just so you can cut some time off yourself, is while you're explaining the frame of the truck, you're going to go, now I'm going to explain and examine the frame of my truck. At the same time, I'm going to go ahead and examine the frame of my trailer and my cross members. None are loose, missing, or damaged. None are cracked, bent, or broken. None have any illegal welds, any broken welds, and none have any unmanufactured holes. I want you to go ahead and walk the frame of the trailer, look underneath and check your cross members as you're walking it, and then come back up. You need to be explaining it as you're walking it, okay? As we get back up here, we're going to move into our suspension system, okay? So you have these 4 bolts here, 1, 2, 3, 4. They lead you directly to your spring mount. Then you have the flatter bar right here. That's your leaf spring.
Now you have two bolts right here that are shaped in a U shape, and they're bolted down here. Those are your U bolts. This one and this one. Those are your U bolts, okay? And then you have your shock absorber. It's right here. Your spring hinge is in the back. It cannot be seen. So as you're explaining it, just say the spring hinge cannot be seen. None are loose, missing, or damaged. The spring mount is tight and secure to the frame of the truck with no missing nuts or bolts, and it's not cracked or has any illegal welds. Your leaf spring is not misaligned or shifted in any way. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. Your U-bolts are all tight and secure with no missing nuts or bolts, which you can be checked from underneath here. Your shock absorber is not leaking, operating properly. The rubber bushing inside your shock absorber right here, that's your rubber bushing. It's not dry rotted or cracked. Your spring hinge in the back, you cannot see it. It's properly greased. Okay? Then once we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and move to your steering system. We're going to start with the steering shaft. If you ever have a hard time remembering steering shaft, as you turn it, the steering wheel inside turns. So that just makes it steering wheel, steering shaft. So you have your steering shaft, your U-joints right here. They can be shown by this little U right here. And that's how you can remember U-joint. U-joint, power steering gearbox. Pitman arm, drag link, which is this bar right here, runs from up here to right here. That's your drag link. Steering ring knuckle is right here. And then your spindle and steering arm are directly behind this tire right here. They cannot be seen. So during the test, you're just gonna explain them. And if they ask where they're at, just explain that they cannot be seen without you crawling underneath the vehicle. Okay? Then this rod right here, that runs from tire to tire, that's your tie rod. Okay? None are loose, missing, or damaged. All are connected. Your U-joints are properly greased with no debris. Your power steering gearbox is not loose, missing, or damaged, not cracked, bent, or broken. It's not leaking, operating properly with no missing nuts or bolts. Okay? Your drag link is not bent or damaged with the rubber boots, not dry rotted or cracked. Now your rubber boots act as cartilage. They're in between here and right here. And once again, those are rubber boots. Your cotter pins and castle nuts. Now, if you ever play chess, think of it as a rook. Yeah. Well, just if you do play chess, or think of it as the top of a castle. That's the reason it's the castle nut. So castle nut and cotter pin, there's two. There's one here, and there's one here. Okay? This is your brake chamber. Brake chamber hoses. Slack adjuster right here, okay? This entire system right here is your slack adjuster. Even this rod, that's part of the slack adjuster. This little piece right here, this little rod, that's your push rod, okay? Bracket starts here, goes down to here. That's your bracket. This is your coupling right here. It goes all the way around the brake chamber, okay? Coupling. Lining and drum is back here. The drum can actually be seen from the outside right here, but you don't actually have to touch it on the outside. Just lean in and point from the back, okay? And none are loose, missing, or damaged. All are connected properly. Your brake chamber is operating properly. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. Your brake chamber hoses are not frayed or cracked. They're not leaking. Your slack adjuster is operating properly, and when you pull it, has no more than 1 inch of play. Okay? If it does, it needs to be corrected by a certified mechanic.
Do you have to pull it?
You do not have to pull that for the test. You actually have to put some, in order for you to actually pull it, you got to put some oomph behind it. And if you're not strong enough, then you just look a little weird doing it. Okay? So, once again, do not have to do that for the test. Then you have your push rod. It's not bent or damaged in any way. The bracket
is secured to both the brake chamber and the lining with no missing nuts or bolts. The coupling is in place, no missing nuts or bolts. The lining is not worn dangerously thin, and the drum is free of debris, is free of debris and grease, has no illegal welds, and no cracks. Okay. Now I'm going to turn the wheel back, and then I'll get to the tire. Okay, so the entire tire assembly, you have the inside of the tire, the outside of the tire, the tread, the bead, the rim, the lug nuts, and the valve stem. Alright, now, none are loose, missing, or damaged. The inside and outside of the tire holds 95 to 105 pounds of pressure. Can be checked with the gauge inside the truck. It's not cracked, it's not cut, it's not bulging, has no gouges on the inside or outside of the tire. The tread is 4/32 because the tires are not allowed to be mismatched and it's not allowed to have any retread on it. If there is ever any retread, you'll see a little flap right here that looks like the top of it was glued to the sidewall. And you'll be able to tell because it's going to be very, very noticeable. Okay? If you ever want to check the tread depth, you can go get a tread depth meter from the store for about $10 to $15. Or you can take a quarter, flip the quarter upside down, stick it in here, and as long as it's above the head, you're fine. It's going to be about halfway in the head of the quarter. And that's how you can check it without actually having to go spend a bunch of money. Okay. The bead, you don't want it to be leaking or dented. Okay. Now, if you want to check to see if it's leaking, just go get a bottle of water, pop a hole on the top, put a little soap in there, shake it up, and just squirt it, and it'll bubble up anywhere there's a leak. Your rim is not cracked and has no illegal welds. Okay. Now, for your lug nuts, make sure you touch each lug nut. Now, if you're touching them, just to make sure that you touch every last one of them so you know in your head you did, start with the very top one and just kind of do a round, okay? You can either check them, like actually check them, or you can just run your hands. They don't care as long as you touch them all. But I usually do two. That way if I missed one, I at least went around twice so I know I caught the one I missed, okay? You're looking for any rust trails. Any silver shavings indicating looseness of lug nut, and you want to make sure that each and every lug nut is tight, and that's the purpose of running your hand around. Okay. Valve stem is metal. It's pointed away from the rim. In your book, it's either going to say pointed away from rim or pointed away from tire. So make sure you specifically say whatever it says in the book. Okay. Then you have your hub and seal. Okay. Hub and seal is tight, it's not leaking, and it's not cracked. I believe all it says is not cracked, not leaking. Okay. Then we'll move up here to the mirror. You're going to check both your brackets. Make sure both the brackets are there, not loose, missing, or damaged, and nuts and bolts are tight and secure. Mirror is not damaged. Okay. Then you're going to open up the door, close the door, open it back up. Door opens and closes properly. You need to do that specifically for the test to show it. Then you're going to check your hinges. Here's this one, and this one, okay? Your hinges are properly greased. Now, in the real world, you're not going to use grease, you're going to use WD-40, but for the test, they just want you to stay properly greased, okay? Then you come around here, this is your weather seal. Okay? all you have to do is say intact. Okay. Then we're going to go to the ABC fire extinguisher. You cannot miss this on the test due to the fact that it says A, B, C right here. Okay. ABC fire extinguisher. Needle is in the green, showing that it's properly charged. Okay. For your personal knowledge, if you ever carry hazmat material, make sure you have the right fire extinguisher for that material. Okay. If you ever get pulled over by DOT, it will matter. Then we're going to close this back up. We're done with this for now. We're going to go ahead and go to the battery box steps. So the battery box steps and the fuel tank steps can be explained the same as these steps on the other side of the truck. If you have Olivia, you will have to explain it, so you're just going to go into detail again. You have your battery box steps, your fuel tank steps. Not loose, missing, damaged, not cracked, bent, or broken. Secure with no missing nuts or bolts. No debris or objects. Okay? Then you're going to get into the fuel tank. You have your fuel tank, your straps, your gasket, fuel cap with rubber seal, your fuel lines. Can all be explained the same as the fuel tank on the other side. If you have Olivia, you will have to explain it again. My fuel tank is not loose, missing, or damaged. It's not dented. It's not leaking. My straps are tight and secure to the truck with no missing nuts or bolts. My straps are centered on my gaskets. My gaskets are not dry rotted or cracked. My fuel cap with rubber seal is tight and secure to the fuel tank. The rubber seal inside is not dry rotted or cracked. Fuel lines are not frayed, not cracked, not leaking. You'd be able to feel it. Now on the other side, I know you can't really touch it, but on this side you can, so go ahead and touch it, okay? You do not have to show the rubber seal on this side since you did show it on the other side. But if you want to be better safe than sorry, go ahead and show it again. Now, if you don't have Olivia, like I said, you can compare it to the same as the other side, so then you wouldn't have to do anything, okay? Catwalk can be explained the same as these steps on the other side. But if you have Olivia, a catwalk is not loose, missing, damaged, cracked, bent, or broken. Has nuts and bolts are all tight and secure with no debris or objects. Okay. They're going to move down here to the drive line. Okay. So if you want to pause that. No, don't stop it. Just pause. Then, yeah, this entire thing is your drive line. This is your drive shaft right here. This rod right here, from front to back. Now, this is your U-joint right here. You can see how it makes a U. Now, this one, it makes a U as well, so it's also part of your U-joint. But if you look right here, you'll see a nut and bolt right here and right here. And you'll see that this is actually separated. That is your locking tab, universal locking tab, okay? Now, in between here, that's your coupling, okay? Now, none are loose, missing, or damaged. The drive line is not cracked, bent, or broken. Your coupling is properly greased. Your front and rear locking tabs are tight and secure in place with no missing nuts or bolts, and the universal joint is properly greased. I'm not sure how that says it in your book for the U-joint, so like I said, just verify, reread. Okay, if you want to walk back to this side, you can, and we'll get started on the other systems. Come over here. This is your brake chamber. Okay, so we're going to start with the brake assembly on this one. This is your rear of tractor brake assembly. This is brake chamber. Now, your slack adjuster, your push rod, your brake chamber hoses, and your coupling and your bracket, your lining and drums, you really can't see them without crawling underneath. So for the test, you're just going to kind of lean down and point, okay? Can all be explained the exact same way as the brake assembly on the front of the truck. Then we're going to come up here to your suspension system. You have your spring mount, your leaf spring. Now if you lean in back here, you can see the U-bolts right here. Okay, there's U-bolts there. Now the shock absorber is behind the frame, so you can't see it. They can all be explained the exact same way as the front of the truck. But the exception is back here, you do not have a spring hinge. Instead, you have an overload spring and an airbag. A like to call the airbag my big black marshmallow because that's what it looks like. So my airbag, it's not cracked, it's not bulging, not spider web, not leaking, operating properly. Overload springs, not loose, misted, damaged, not cracked, bent, or broken, operating properly. Rubber bushing is not loose, misted, damaged, it's not dry rotted or cracked. Right? Then we're going to move to the tires. So you have the inside, the outside, the bead, the rim, the lug nuts. You have to touch each one again, okay? The lug nuts and the valve stem can all be explained the same as the front of the tractor. The exceptions are the tread depth. Because the tires are allowed to be mismatched and they are allowed to be retreaded, the tread depth back here changes from 4/30 seconds to 2/30 seconds. So on these tires, it's 2/30 seconds, okay? Then, if you look in between here, you'll notice that you have a bud rim instead. It's the two rims that connect right there. It's a bud rim. You don't want any daylight, no debris, and no objects in there, okay? And then we're gonna go, like I said, make sure you touch each lug nut. Then we're gonna come here to your rear axle. Now, your rear axle is not loose, misted, damaged. It's not cracked. It's not leaking. The gasket inside is properly sealed. No missing nuts or bolts, and secure. Now on this, if you want to be better safe than sorry and touch these as well, that's up to you. I personally would go ahead and touch them again. Okay. Then we're going to move back here to your mud flap. Your mud flap is secured to the truck with no missing nuts or bolts. Once we're done with that, we're going to move up. Now, here is your apron. Okay. Then we're going to go to your skid plate, your platform pivot pin, your release arm, and your platform. Okay. Now, if you look in between here, you'll have to crawl under there to look. If you look in between there, you'll see your locking jaw, and directly behind your locking jaw will be your kingpin. Okay? Now, none are loose, missing, or damaged, cracked, bent, or broken. Your skid plate is angled. There is no daylight or debris in between the skid plate and the apron. Your release arm opens properly, releasing your locking jaw. Your locking jaw properly locks around your kingpin. Your platform, if it is a moving platform, it's properly secured and in place and far enough back so that when you are turning, you do not hit the landing gears. Okay? Your apron is not cracked, bent, or broken and has no illegal welds or broken welds. And that's it for the tractor. So now we're going to go ahead and move to the trailer. Now, this is another thing you could check at the same time. We're going to check the header board and the side of the trailer at the same time. None are loose, missing, or damaged. The header board and the side of the trailer is strong enough to contain the weight of the cargo with no missing rivets or nuts and bolts. Okay. Then while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the air and electrical lines. Blue is your service line. Red is your emergency, and green is your electrical. The couplings are tight and secure to both the tractor and the trailer. The lines themselves are not loose, missing, and damaged, not frayed, not cracked, not leaking. Okay? Your glad hands are not cracked and are in place, and the rubber seals inside are not dry rotted or cracked. You will not remove this for the test. Your electrical line is not loose, missing, or damaged, has no exposed wires, it's not chafed, it's not worn, it's not spliced, and it's connected to both the trailer and the truck. Okay, truck and the trailer. Now, if you come back here, right about here, you actually feel underneath here.
And you can see, if you put the camera under there, you can see electrical lines and air lines underneath here too. If you want to, they're checked the exact same way as the air and electrical lines on the truck and trailer. So if you want to go ahead and just say that at the same time, you can. Okay? Then we're going to move down here to your reflective tape. It must be red and white in color. They're not ripped or torn and reflects light properly. For the test, if you kind of just want to look at it and do a little lean to lean to see the reflective light, I would, just to make sure that they know that you're looking for the reflective light. Then you're going to move to your reflector. It must be amber in color, not loose, missing, or damaged. Then we're going to move down here to your landing gear. You have your crank handle. In your book it says to demonstrate. You no longer have to demonstrate your crank handle. When you push it in, it is in high gear, which means that the landing leg lowers and raises faster. When you pull it out, it's in low gear, which means the landing leg lowers and raises slower. Your landing leg is properly greased and not bent, cracked, bent, or broken, and has no illegal welds. Your shoe is in place, not damaged, and has enough clearance from the road to be safely transported. Then you have your support frame for your landing gear, okay? So you have this bar and this bar here, and this is actually the housing for the leg itself, okay? You just have to explain the support frame. You don't actually have to go into detail about it. Then once we're done with that, we're going to move back here. You have the trailer brake assembly. Now you have your brake chamber, your brake chamber hoses, your slack adjuster, your push rod, coupling, your bracket, your lining, and your drums can all be explained the same as the rear of the tractor. If you have to go in detail, it's the exact same system as the front of the truck and the back of the truck. There is absolutely no changes. Then you're going to get into your support system. You have your spring mount, leaf spring, and U-bolts are back there once again. Can all be explained the same as the rear of the tractor. Your exceptions: there is no spring hinge, there is no overload spring, no airbag, and no shock absorber. Instead, you have a torsion arm, and then if you look over here in the exact same position, you have a torsion bar, okay? Now it's just bigger, it's square, almost like a rectangle. Not loose, missing, or damaged, not cracked, bent, or broken, operating properly, and secure with no missing nuts or bolts. Okay. I'm not sure if your book goes into more detail, but once again, like I've said, just make sure you say whatever is in the book. Okay. The tire assembly. You have the inside, the outside, the tread, the bead, the rim, the lug nuts, the valve stem, rear axle. Can all be explained the same as the rear of the tractor. The exception on here is if you look in between here, you'll notice that it looks a lot different from the bud rim. That's because it's a spacer. Your spacer is not cracked, bent, or broken, not loose, missing, or damaged. It has no illegal welds or broken welds. That's about it. Free of debris and grease and debris. I don't know why I combined the two. It's a little weird. Right. Then we're going to get into your mud flap. Trailer mud flap can be explained the exact same as the tractor mud flap. Then we're going to get into the door. You have your door panels, which you can see them separated by the lines. Your locking latch, and you have your rivets. Okay, so behind each one of these rivets is a hinge. Okay, 4 rivets is 1 hinge, 2 on top, 2 on bottom, and they connect the door panels to each other. Okay, so your door opens and closes properly with no missing panels. Your hinges are in place with no missing rivets. Your locking latch latches properly, keeping the door locked. Then we're going to go ahead and check our reflective tape once again. Must be red and white in color. And that is the truck and trailer. But now we're going to go ahead and go over the lights. Your lights. While I'm back here, I like to start back here when I'm explaining it to you guys.
first thing you're going to do is you're going to actually go turn on your lights. So once you turn on the lights, you'll start from the front, okay? But while we're back here, the 3 lights in the middle, those are ID lights, okay? Then you have your left blinker light and left hazard light. Right blinker light, right hazard light. Your brake lights. Must be red in color, not loose, missing, damaged, not cracked, bent, or broken. Or not cracked or broken. Sorry, I don't know why I said that. Right here, that is a marker light. Marker light, okay? Now, like I said, you're gonna start from up here originally, because you gotta come up here anyways. You're gonna go ahead and turn the lights on. That way, while you're doing this, they can see that the lights properly work. Now, if you look in the top, you have your 3 ID lights in the center there, and the 2 clearance lights on the outside, okay? They must be amber in color and not cracked or broken. You have your headlights. Must be clear, visible, and clean, not cracked. Then you have your signal lights. Must be amber in color, clean, not cracked. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to come into here. You're going to pull your switch down, turning on your left blinker. We're going to walk back up here. We're going to start from here. You're going to check to make sure your left blinker is working properly. And all you're going to do is go left blinker working properly. Side tractor blinker operating properly. My tail lights, red in color, left blinker operating properly, not cracked, not damaged. As I already explained it, now you can see it, mark light, it's operating properly. My brake lights, tail lights are operating properly, my left blinker operating properly. Now, don't ever walk back down this way, you always walk in a circle, okay? The reason they teach you this is because when you're walking in a circle, it's just to make sure that while you walk back the other way, if you go to get in your truck, nobody crawls underneath your truck or inside your truck. Okay? Now that we're up front again, I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to check my right blinker. Go ahead and turn on the right blinker. Okay? We're going to walk the truck again. Whatever direction you walk in, always walk in the same direction, okay? Now, we have our right tail light on trailer operating properly. Right tail light on tractor operating properly. Right side tractor signal operating properly. Right indicator light operating properly. Do the same thing. This time we're going to go ahead and we're going to check the hazards. So we're going to shut off our signals. Turn on our hazards, okay? Walk back up front. Okay, left hazard light operating properly. Left side signal operating properly. Left operating properly. Left hazard light operating properly. Right hazard light operating properly. Right hazard light on tractor operating properly. Right side light working properly. Right indicator light operating properly. Now at this point, we're going to go ahead, we're going to shut our indicator lights off, and we're going to turn on our high beams. While high beams are on, we're going to walk back up here. High beams operating properly. At this time, you're going to ask for assistance, okay? So, you're going to, ma'am or sir, whoever your instructor is, would you mind assisting me to test my brake lights, okay? So, they're going to walk back here. They're going to stand right about here so they can see both your brake lights on your trailer. Okay? You're going to crawl into the truck. You're going to release both brake valves. And then you will, before you release both brake valves, you're going to let them know, I'm now going to release both brake valves so I can push in my truck brake. So, release both brake valves once they give you the go-ahead, and then just push your service brake in. You're just going to be hitting this brake right here, okay? Once you hit that, your tail lights on your truck or tractor, your tail lights on your truck or tractor, and your tail lights on your trailer will light up. They'll give you a thumbs up or a hand wave letting you know they were working properly. And that is your entire pre-trip. Now, when you're done with that, I want you to get out, ask how much time you have left. Now, a lot of people will then finish their pre-trip and just say, okay, I'm done. Use your time. It's there, whether you have 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Re-walk the truck, go through a mind thing, reopen the hood, make sure in your head you know you didn't miss anything. When they say time, that's when you quit. I don't want you to say you're done before, especially if they tell you you have 15 minutes left. If they tell you you have any more than 12 minutes left, you probably missed something. If you have about 10 minutes left, that means you ran through it at a good pace. You did a very good job, but still rerun through everything just to verify you did not miss a single thing, okay? If you did miss something, come back. Don't just say what you missed. If you missed, like say I forgot the fuel cap, okay? I want you to come back and say, okay, my fuel tank, it's not loose, missing, or damaged. It's not dented. It's not leaking. My straps, tight and secure. No missing nuts or bolts. Go through the whole thing again. Centered on my gaskets. My gaskets are not dry rotted or cracked. My fuel cap, that was the part you missed. You're now at it, okay? My fuel cap is tight and in place. Rubber seal inside is not dry rotted or cracked. Fuel lines are not leaking. Tight and in place. Not afraid to crack. That way you know you said it. And if you go through the whole system again, because if you miss this, what else did you miss on this system? You don't know, right? So just say the whole system again. Same thing with no matter what part it is, you go through the whole system. Okay? And that's your air brake test. Or not air brake, that's your pre-trip.